All right, welcome back to the AfterBuzz with
Buzz.
Buzz himself here on the AfterBuzz here for July 10th, 2019. Thank you for being here. I'm your host Brandon Coates. Producer Dave's back after a couple of weeks off.
Hey,
Everybody
good to
give
be
a big
back.
round of applause over there.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. And as always, if you guys want, you are more than welcome to get into the old YouTube chat there with questions, comments. We're going to be talking a lot of MCU and Spider-Man stuff here. Really quickly, though, Buzz, there's a sponsor that we want. We don't have it yet, but would you like to plug a specific something that you have sitting in front of you?
I don't
Just
know
in
what you're
case.
talking about, but I do feel my throat is a little scratchy,
And
so
parched.
let me just have a drink.
Good placement, too. Good placement. That's solid
Ah, Dr. Pepper.
right there.
Best drink ever.
All right, so remember, make sure you guys are clicking the old thumbs up right there to give us a like. You guys are hitting the subscribe and get the notifications there for when we go live with the AfterBuzz. And also, quick reminder too: a new episode of Rockstar 101 just went up. You can find that on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Those will probably be more consistent going up now because I have finally been given full control of it, and it was like this really weird long chain of I would produce it and then I would save it to something, and then it was just this. It was not efficient, is really what it is. But a new episode is up. It's Shim and I talking about equal rights, equal pay, stuff like that. Which, of course, two white guys talking about it is clearly the way you want to go when it comes to equality.
Check your privilege.
Exactly. So go check that out again. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts for Rockstar 101. Now, we're going to jump straight into stuff here. And we're going to get into the whole topic of Spider-Man and the MCU. Buzz kind of got hosed a little bit because he went to go see the movie over the weekend. And you were told, there's no real reason to stick around for
I
the
took my
second
nephew, and he had already seen it, but he wanted to see it again. And after the mid-credit scene, which was great, by the way, I loved the mid-credit scene, he told me specifically, and he said, we don't need to stick around for the second one, that it's not worth it.
Well,
so I was imagining, like, at the end of Ant-Man 2.
You
with
got the ant drumming, and or even at the
So I
end of
skipped
Avengers
it.
when they're eating the shawarmas.
Yeah, you could do without that. Or the end of Endgame when it's just the sound.
Yeah, the cling.
So I took his word for it. And it turns out this
Pretty
was
big
one of
deal.
the most important post-credit scenes ever.
So these two scenes, and we should tell this right now, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. We're going to be giving away some massive
we're going to
spoilers
talk
here.
about it as if you have seen Spider-Man.
So otherwise, turn this off now because we're getting right into it. So the first end credit scene has to do with Spider-Man flying around the city with MJ. And he ends up kind of plunking her down.
Kind of their Superman and Margot Kidder moment.
It is. And so he ends up on top of a light pole, and then it's kind of like he's not in Times Square, but it's close, right? I mean, it's something similar because there's a TV screen on a building that flashes up with a news update, and it's J. Jonah Jameson. Now, I never saw Spider-Man Homecoming. Was he J. Jonah Jameson in the first one? Was there any J. Jonah Jameson? No. So this is the first kind of reiteration of him, I guess, coming back into the Spider-Man universe.
I was actually wondering for the past couple of movies. I mean, Spider-Man has now been in 4 or 5 Marvel movies.
Well, it started with Civil War. He was in both Endgame and Infinity War.
And
he had Homecoming, so and now this one.
And I was wondering, are they just never going to do the Daily Planet with J. Jonah Jameson?
Bugle.
And I also
Daily Planet Super.
The Daily Bugle. I'm sorry. Are they just going to ignore that, like he never was a photographer or anything? And
well, remember, he's 16 years old. He's still in high school. Like,
he was in high school in I'm trying to remember back. Yeah, it was pretty soon after.
He was still in high school in The Amazing Spider-Man, right? The ones with Andrew Garfield. He was still in high school. Anyway, so this end scene, as we got sidetracked here, it flashes off with like a news update, and it's J.K. Simmons, and he's back in his role as
J. Jonah Jameson.
And it's a video that was leaked. So from Mysterio, again, we're guessing that you've seen all of this. So spoilers ahead. Basically, Mysterio, he's the bad guy, which you could pretty much tell. Like, they weren't selling that in the trailers. It was going to be the Elementals. And then Mysterio was going to be the good guy that's helping with Spider-Man, but turns out he was bad.
Everybody knows Mysterio's bad guy.
And so he ends up doctoring the footage to make it look like Spider-Man had him killed. So J. Jonah Jameson blasts this out there, and in the video, it has Quentin Beck, a.k.a. Mysterio, saying Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Like, he announces to the world who the secret identity of Spider-Man is, and it's blasted right there, and then that's the end of that scene right there. So this clearly has repercussions for the future of Spider-Man. And are we going to be going into an MCU where people know who Spider-Man is? It's happened in the comics before. This isn't anything new. Most recently, I believe it was during Civil War II. They knew who Spider-Man was, but they retconned it, where they went and had Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange went back in time and made everybody forget.
Yeah, and he basically blipped that out of existence. But the bigger end scene was the final one at the very end of the credits, and that had to do with Nick Fury. And it starts out, it shows the Audi SUV that they're cruising in, and it's got Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, and he's got Maria Hill sitting next to him. All of a sudden, she turns into a Skrull. And then all of a sudden, he turns into a Skrull.
Not just any Skrull, the Skrull couple from Captain Marvel.
Exactly. So
and Mendelsohn.
He makes a phone call, and he's talking about how we did what you said. We gave the glasses to the kid, blah, 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 blah. Basically saying that the Nick Fury and Maria Hill that you see throughout the entire movie of Far From Home, it's not actually them. It is the Skrulls that are portraying them. Now, it shows who he's talking to. He's talking to Nick Fury. It looks like Nick Fury's on a beach. But you can tell that it looks a little bit weird. It almost looks phony, kind of like when Agent Coulson died and ended up in Tahiti. Not to be. It's just a room with a screen, and as he gets up, the screen blips to white, and he walks out, and all of a sudden he's in this gigantic space station with a bunch of Skrulls walking around him. He's clapping his hands. He's telling everybody, hey, get back to work, get back to work. So you might be wondering, what is this preluding to? Like, what is it bringing for the future of the MCU? Well, what most people are guessing is this is SWORD, which is an off branch of S.H.I.E.L.D. And SWORD, which stood for Sentient World Observation and Response Department. And this was brought forth, I believe it was 2004, by
Joss Whedon?
Joss Whedon was actually the one, I believe, who brought in SWORD for the first time. So the purpose of this is S.H.I.E.L.D. was designed to go up against threats like Hydra. SWORD is more outer space, alien threats, things like that. So you might be wondering, what does this mean for the future of the MCU? I got a feeling that the vast majority of the stories now are going to be taking place in outer space. We know we're going to get a Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And I still stand by my theory that Gamora is still alive. But Gamora is part of her soul is trapped in the Soul Stone. Now you might be asking yourself this question. You might be wondering, I thought the Soul Stone was destroyed by Thanos. That cannot be. And I think the Russo brothers were the ones that even said this. You can't completely eliminate the stones. You can blip them out into atomic levels, but you never actually get rid of the stones themselves, because if those stones disappear, our universe disappears. Because those 6 stones are what control everything in the universe. Does that make sense?
Okay.
You're following me?
Sure.
So the Soul Stone still exists. I got a feeling that Gamora is still in the Soul Stone. A piece of her soul is. And that's what they will do for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Which leads us to other things that they could possibly do for the future of the MCU.
Well, I think they're definitely getting into the Skrull-Kree war. You're going to see the Kree show back up. When did it change that the Skrull were the bad guy and the Kree were the good guy? Because that's the way it was when I read comic books. So
it was the Skrulls were bad, the Kree were good, right?
Skrulls were bad, Kree good. Yeah.
But now it's got it where it's like the Skrulls are good,
the Kree are bad.
Okay, so we've already kind of flip-flopped on that one. So there's a blog up that I have at BuzzAdamShow.com where I kind of go through some of the different possibilities of where the MCU might be going at this point. Because if you think about it, this is the first time in like a decade that we have not been able to really see, or they're not even really telling us. Like, yes, we know there's going to be a Guardians of the Galaxy 3. We know they're going to do a Black Panther 2. We know they're going to do a Doctor Strange 2. We know that they're working on a Black Widow movie. There's all these different movies, but they haven't announced really, like, this movie's going to be released on this date. And, The next phase, there's a lot of mystery still behind it. Whereas with the first one, we kind of knew, okay, when we first noticed that there were Infinity Stones, they went with that, and that wrapped up with Endgame. So you can kind of look at Spider-Man: Far From Home as the jumping off point to the next saga. So what do you think that saga could be? And you had a pretty good idea.
Secret Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Right, where you're dealing with a lot of Skrull. You're dealing with Skrull that can take the shape and also powers of some of the Marvel heroes, and I think they'll leave at least some of it on Earth. I don't think it'll all be in space because I think they want to keep it grounded.
Well, yeah, I don't think every single one of them will be in space, but I think that the next saga, I mean, obviously the Infinity Saga comes from space too because it was with Thanos, but I got a feeling that that's kind of what they're alluding to here with Nick Fury being on the Peak. The Peak is the space station that's out there that is the home base for Sword. Now, one of the main Marvel characters that's a part of Sword that helped them out was Beast from the X-Men, which leads to one of my theories that I will get to here in a minute. One of the movies I could easily see them doing would be another Civil War. Yes, it's rehashing the same thing. And there's a couple theories I have here. One would be because the other Civil War has to do with it's Captain Marvel versus Iron Man. Obviously, we can't do that in the movies because Iron Man's dead. But they're kind of building up to Peter Parker taking over as the next Tony Stark. You know what I mean? Like they really sold that in Spider-Man: Far From Home. As Happy's at the front of the plane, looking back, and he's Peter Parker's going through designing his own suit and all the other stuff.
Right.
So Civil War II, it happens to do with there's a mutant that can apparently see the future, but they aren't really sure if it can see the future or not. So Captain Marvel's side is we need to preemptively strike against any things that this mutant sees.
We're just going to take this mutant's word for it.
Exactly. And then for Tony Stark, he's like, no, we can't do that. We need to make sure that things need to happen before. It was a Minority Report with Tom Cruise. Wasn't that the whole premise of that movie? Is that you kind of see the future.
They're always right, except when they're not.
Exactly. So that's kind of the premise of Civil War II. I could easily see them doing that as a movie coming up with, even the Captain Marvel movie. Although that is really close to Captain America: Civil War. If they were to do a Captain Marvel Civil War. The other one is that the actual Infinity War comic series was different. Did you ever read that series?
No. That came in right after I had kind of gotten away from comics for about 30 years until I discovered you could read them online and they're awesome.
Uh-huh.
So I wasn't still actively reading when Secret Wars took place.
So you had Infinity Gauntlet. That was really the story that they just did with Infinity War.
I did read that. I was still reading comics when that came out.
Yeah, and there was a few years later that Infinity War came out as the comic kind of crossover. And for Infinity War, you had Adam Warlock, and at the end of Infinity Gauntlet, he split into two beings. There was a good side and a bad side. There's Adam Warlock, and then the bad one was called Magus. And Magus is basically trying to do the exact same thing Thanos was doing. He wanted to get the stones back together. They brought in, I believe it was the Eternals. And one of the reasons I could see them doing this is they're working on an Eternals movie. So you've heard that, right?
Yeah.
So
as characters, the Eternals never really interested me.
Well, but this is one of those things that could bring all of this together. Is they've teased Adam Warlock. Remember, they teased him at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So they could very easily bring him in, but it would seem really, really cheap to go with like something so similar, like for both of these in a Civil War movie and even another saga involving the Gauntlet. And
can I interject what I hope happens?
Absolutely.
The X-Men rights revert to Marvel and Disney.
Yes.
They bring over the X-Men. They have Avengers versus X-Men.
That brings me to my next one. I'm so glad you brought that up. So the way that Avengers versus X-Men goes, Scarlet Witch freaks out and she kills 90% of the mutants on Earth. So the mutants are all contained to it's called something different, but it's Alcatraz Island off the coast of San Francisco. The reason that they end up battling with each other is another Phoenix is coming down. Yes, I know we've been down the Phoenix path a couple of times. But what happens is the Phoenix comes down and it's going after Hope Solo. Not Hope Solo. Hope Summers.
Hope so.
Hope Solo.
What do they have against a retired American soccer
a
star?
goaltender. So it's Hope Summers, and she is Cable's daughter. And so for the mutants, they're like, well, we want to try to embrace this thing finally. We want to allow her to try to control it. Whereas for the Avengers, which are led by Tony Stark, they're saying, like
too much danger. We can't risk billions of people's lives.
Exactly. And so lo and behold, Tony Stark is the one that kind of screws up, and it splits the Phoenix into, I think it's 5 different pieces, and 5 of the mutants from Cyclops, Emma Frost, Colossus, Magic, and Namor. Those are the 5 that get these like uber superpowers. And so they kind of run the whole damn planet at that point. So that's Avengers versus X-Men. So I can very easily see them doing that, because where does the Phoenix Force come from? Space. As they're leading to that with Samuel L. Jackson being up on the peak as Nick Fury. Now, the other one that I have that I mentioned in this article at BuzzAdamShow.com, it's a story that hasn't even completed yet in the comics. It's actually kind of in the middle right now, and it's Absolute Carnage, because they've talked about potentially bringing Venom in to the MCU.
I don't like the Venom character.
Really?
Yeah. I know. He's got a lot of pop culture
strange human being over here, ladies and gentlemen.
Never cared for the Venom character.
Really? Any iteration of him? Comics, cartoons, Topher Grace?
Nope.
None of it. Did you see the movie with Tom Hardy?
I didn't even bother because I hate the character so much.
Okay, well,
it's like, all right, hey, we got Spider-Man, but what if Spider-Man and the Hulk had a baby, and it's just like a more badass? It's almost like how everything got extreme in the 90s. Here's your extreme version of Spider-Man.
And it was just an X in front of every single, like you'd be like X-Buzz, like Extreme Buzz. But so the whole premise of this is it comes from the Venomized comics, where there's more than just Venom. There's multiple symbiotes, and there's multiple different universes. And again, this would mean we would kind of be stepping into that multiverse storyline where you have a Wolverine that has a symbiote. You have Captain America that has one. And in the comics, it was actually a fantastic read. It was super cool. But what it's leading to is, obviously, after you had Spider-Man, you had Venom, and then that ends up with Carnage. Carnage, who is considered one of the most evil beings in all of the Marvel universe. He's even more murderous than ever. And one of the coolest parts about this comic, it's not even, I believe it's either this month or next month that Absolute Carnage will be released, but it's Donny Cates is the guy who's going to be behind it. And he is one of my favorite Marvel guys to follow with any of the comics that he's involved with. And so, the way that he's explaining it is that, Cletus Cassidy, who's the guy that becomes Carnage, he's back. He's more murderous. He's more psychopath, and he's trying to go kill anybody that's ever had a symbiote attached to them. And since this thing came from space, again, I could easily see this being another direction that they're going on in the MCU. Buzz is clearly not a fan of that one. So you're saying,
I like the more ground. I know this sounds crazy when we're talking about like super soldiers and.
I like my comics to be more realistic.
Yeah. So.
This was a complaint when we would talk about Into the Spider-Verse. It was because we were talking like Spider-Ham, and you were like, yeah, I don't like that. Like, which, it sounds like a silly argument.
What made the first Iron Man and the first Captain America were so great is like you only had to suspend a little bit of disbelief to say, yeah, we got steroids, and you could make a strong guy who also could throw a shield. That could happen. It's when you get symbiotes and aliens and live model decoys and all this other stuff that I don't think you have to make it that fantastic, and it's got to get confusing. I mean, if it's confusing for me as somebody who read comic books when I was a kid, for somebody who's just coming into all this only on the movies, it's just got to be impossible to follow.
Yeah, and I know that was one of the problems for a lot of people who don't follow comics. The thing that they did very well with the previous 3 phases was that you were able to watch one of the movies as a solo shot. Like you didn't have to see all of them. There was multiple people that would hit us up in the Facebook chat during the show that they said, I haven't seen any of the other movies, but I went and saw Infinity War and Endgame and thought they were great. So they were still incredibly well done, which is obviously, hopefully, something that.
Well,
they're
the
able to
best
continue
ones
to
are
do.
a lot of fun, no matter what. So the best Marvel movies
Absolutely
are fun.
You're talking, the first Iron Man, Thor Ragnarok was a great one. The first Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange, like these were all, great movies unto themselves. So clearly, you're the one that's leaning towards an Avengers versus X-Men.
Oh yeah, but I don't want to get. You don't even have to get the Phoenix Force involved.
Like
Just
create something else.
Right. Introduce the X-Men into the main Marvel universe and just have a fight.
Yeah.
Without it being all about magic.
Well, but you would also have to come up with some sort of a reason for the fight.
Yeah, right. So they disagree over something. It could be like it could be an offshoot of the Superhero Registration Act. Because maybe the mutants are. Wait a minute, we're not superheroes. We were born this way. This is our civil rights. You're messing with, and that's the fight.
It could also even be one of those situations of they take the story from Civil War II, and that becomes the overlying arc where it's a mutant that they're either picking sides, and maybe the X-Men are siding with the mutant. It's not directly Captain Marvel versus Iron Man, because obviously it can't be Iron Man anymore. But it could be X-Men, Avengers versus X-Men, in the sense that the X-Men are supporting this mutant who can see the future, as opposed to the Avengers who are like, well, no, we need to put a halt to that. And I've been trying to catch up on the YouTube chat here, but apparently the internet is not functioning properly, so I have to jump to my phone here.
Are we being seen?
Yeah, no, it's the Wi-Fi that's an issue on my thing here. Okay, so Spider-Man: Far From Home, you enjoyed it. You'd say it's number 3 or 4?
Out of all the Spider-Man movies they made.
Which makes it sound like it's a bad movie, but it's not.
Because there were some great,
really, really good movies.
So I've got number 1, I've got Spider-Man 2, the one with Dr. Octopus.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, I've got Spider-Man Homecoming, the first one with Tom Holland. Number 3, I've got the first Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. And number 4 is
Spider-Man Far From Home.
Is Far From Home, yeah. So those are really, really quality movies.
Okay, really quick, let me go through the YouTube chat here. Sony's asking where can she get the podcast of the morning show. That's available on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. It's basically segments from the show. Condense it down. It can range anywhere from like an hour and 15 minutes to 2 hours. We do get some complaints of, why didn't you put this segment in there? It's because copyright issues. I mean, there's only certain things we can put in the podcast. We actually have a special computer that records only the microphones. But
we're talking about pushing the boundary on that soon anyway. We're just going to throw caution to the wind.
Don't tease too much, sir. Don't tease too much.
Oh, because we don't want to know what's...
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Let me see here. Good Lord. Frank says, didn't like the Dancing Toby in Spider-Man 3. I don't think anybody liked the Dancing Toby in Spider-Man 3.
You can't find one single person who says they like that.
But see, and that's one thing I really did like about Into the Spider-Verse is how they mocked that. Remember he's like, and then this happened, and it shows him doing this thing, and he's like, well, we're going to forget that. We're going to act like that never happened. But Cobra Commander is saying the only movie that sucked was Captain Marvel. It was really pointless.
I thought Captain Marvel was a mess for a lot of different reasons. And they could have not done that movie, and Avengers Endgame would have still made it.
But then who would have taken the headbutt from Thanos in Endgame? Don't you remember that? She's the one that's fighting Thanos, and then she's got the force field. He does one of those, and she doesn't even move.
Hulk. I thought Hulk.
Nah, he was pretty weakened at that point.
I thought he was
after the snap. His arm was tiny.
Was it?
Yeah, it was all burnt up after he had to snap to bring back all the people.
Right.
I mean, he was
pretty effed up.
Yeah. So I didn't see Captain Marvel. I didn't hear great things. Buzz says that he didn't really like it. I'll probably check it out when it hits when Disney Plus is released later this year. That's when I'll probably start catching up.
Trust me, I'm not. It featured a female superhero. I would have loved for it to have been great, and I'm really looking forward to the Black Widow. That's the one I can't believe they haven't made yet. Is the Black Widow movie?
Mm-hmm.
But my daughter agreed. When we came out of it together, my daughter's really into MCU, and she goes that wasn't good, right? And I go, Yeah.
So what were the flaws of Captain Marvel that you could think of?
A lot of it was pointless. So Frank or Cobra Commander, whoever made that comment, was you just didn't need it. It was unnecessary. You got plenty of quality characters. Also, some of the motivation didn't make any sense. I'm trying to specifically remember. I only saw it once.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
we got Chris in the YouTube chat. He's saying the way that they integrated Captain Marvel into the universe was a sham, considering she was only in Endgame for 5 minutes. I mean, it really.
Oh yeah, she only did a couple of key things.
Mm-hmm. Like she showed up at the beginning when they went and killed Thanos. After he snapped away the Infinity.
Did she cut his head off, or did Thor cut his head off?
Thor did. Yeah. And then, because remember he made the comment, he goes, "This time I went for the head," because at the end of Infinity War. And then she shows up at the end to try to get the gauntlet off of. It did seem a little bit silly. Like it seemed like almost a throwaway of, oh well, we'll need to bring this character in, or we'll need to introduce this character, just for.
And I guess like
reasons unknown.
Her origin story, she was in a wreck, therefore powers.
Well, there you go.
I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
You think getting bit by a radioactive spider is kind of a stretch? Hey, there's a wreck, and I got powers somehow out of it.
Okay, so for the future of Spider-Man, there's been some rumors of who the next villain might be. Who would you like to see for, let's say, the third Spider-Man movie?
Well, I'm partial to Dr. Octopus, and when they did that with Alfred Molina, he was fantastic, and I think that's a good quality character. I always like Dr. Octopus. But if we were going to do one that we have never, maybe let's do one that we haven't seen before, Kraven the Hunter.
That's the one that's being rumored.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
oh,
because Frank brought that up in the chat.
I've been saying Kraven the Hunter for a long time.
And the guys behind Spider-Man Far From Home have made the comments that they're saying, like, we kind of have a soft spot for Kraven, so maybe not. We'll get some Kraven the Hunter coming up here.
Just
Spider-Man
real quick background. Kraven the Hunter is a Russian world-class hunter, well, superhuman. And he would hunt down the most dangerous prey until Spider-Man came along and he saw him on TV and he realized, man is the most dangerous prey, and especially that man has spider power, so he wants to kill him as a trophy.
Rudy put in the YouTube chat, Black Widow died. Yes, but again, this goes to my theory that her soul and Gamora's soul are somehow trapped inside the Soul Stone, and they can still be rejuvenated somehow. But they're saying that,
I wonder if they make out like a lesbian soul scene.
Like in Black Swan.
Like they just get so lonely in there, they look into each other's soul eyes and just their lips part slightly. Their tongues.
It's making me really uncomfortable right now. But yeah, so that's kind of my theory, is that they both their souls are still inside the Soul Stone somehow, and they'll be able to be brought back. But the rumor is the Black Widow movie is going to take place prior to that scene. But who knows? Vic is asking which X-Men would make a better movie against the Avengers, the original actors or the new ones?
The original actors would be getting pretty long in the tooth now.
Okay, so take it, because I gotta, like, if they do Avengers versus X-Men, the MCU has to reboot the X-Men together, like, in general. Like, there's no way that they can take, what they've already done with that hosed up universe that they've previously done with the X-Men, including both sets and everything else. Like, they would have to completely reboot it. But take them in their prime. Take the 2000 X-Men and then the X-Men from First Class and stuff like that.
Hugh Jackman will,
he's Wolverine no matter what. So he's the one takeover.
The Nicholas Hoult Beast is better than the Kelsey Grammer Beast.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Colossus from Daredevil, but he only shows up in the Daredevil movies. He only showed up in one of the original X-Men.
Oh, you mean Deadpool?
Colossus. Colossus shows up in Deadpool.
They teased
he showed up in a little.
Was that the second one?
Yeah, second one.
Yeah, that's right, because that's when Stryker showed up at the mansion. That's the one where Colossus.
Yeah, and he turns into metal, and then it's like they couldn't afford to do it again, so you don't see it for the rest of the movie.
Who else is there?
Halle Berry.
Which Cyclops would you take?
James Marsden.
Yeah, that's who I. But then again, see, I might be a little bit more partial to specific actors just because the original X-Men. Although First Class I thought was a great movie. I thought it was a really well done movie. There's talks. Frank is saying that Keanu Reeves wants to play Wolverine. I think we talked about this on the air. I think that Keanu Reeves would make a great Adam Warlock.
Look, if you're going to get a 50-year-old to play Wolverine, get Hugh Jackman to just keep doing it.
Yeah, have him keep playing the role. But yeah, I get a feeling that if they are going to go with an Avengers versus X-Men sort of kind of saga, like the underlying saga to all these different movies, then it would definitely need to be a rebooted X-Men. Somehow, some way they got
recast.
Yeah, like they got to recast it. They got to start it all over.
See, but there's some that it's just like, Patrick Stewart is still living.
So there's certain ones that you can carry over. Whoever plays Wolverine, I want to see a Wolverine that's supposed to look like Wolverine. I want to see a 5'3" Wolverine.
Yeah.
Like Hugh Jackman was great.
Feisty as hell.
Exactly. Just a little kind of old brick is who I'd like to see. So on that note, we'll start to wrap up this edition of the AfterBuzz. Again, if there's anything that you guys want to bring in, I do have my phone up now so that I can actually see the YouTube chat. So if you have any questions or comments you guys want to bring up.
Which Phoenix do you prefer?
Which Phoenix? Well, I didn't see the most recent one.
None of them? You haven't seen the one where Sophie Turner plays Phoenix?
No, I didn't see that one.
Did you see...
I did see the one with Famke Janssen, and that movie sucked.
Famke Janssen was in all of them. Famke Janssen was Jean Grey in all of the...
Sophie Turner played Jean Grey.
Not all of them, but the first...
You said which Phoenix do I like?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's only the
You said
movies.
You only saw the one with Famke Janssen.
Yeah, the one Phoenix movie with Famke Janssen.
I don't understand what you're saying.
There's only been 2 movies with the Phoenix in it.
No. She was in X-Men 1.
Yeah. No,
she was in X-Men 2.
Phoenix, not X-Men. Phoenix.
Oh. Okay.
Is anybody else?
I'm talking about a character.
Oh, see, the way that you're making it sound is when you said which Phoenix did I like, I thought you meant like which movies. There was X3 The Last Stand, and then there was X-Men The Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, but those were all X-Men movies. None of them were called
but you
the
were
Phoenix.
Saying Phoenix.
Okay. Which
Phoenix?
I like Famke Janssen better because
Man,
Cougar.
I think I would probably take Famke Janssen as well. I really liked what Sophie Turner did with it. I thought she was great, which is weird because they had a really good cast.
Oh, by the way,
I have recent X-Men movies, but somehow they still suck.
I have a very outrageous take on the most recent X-Men movies, Dark Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Not as terrible as everybody thought it was. In fact, there's a fight. The fight scene on the train is one of the best fight scenes in superhero movies.
Do you think some of that had to do with the ratings that you had seen, so your expectations were a little bit lower?
Yeah, probably lowered my expectations, so I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. But some of the action scenes, especially, you get to see Beast fight in Beast form.
He never really does.
Yeah,
if you think about
and he's awesome. You see him use his feet as hands to fight multiple guys. It's worth watching. I'm telling you, I didn't hate it.
This?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It had problems. It wasn't great, but it wasn't the worst either.
All right, so if you guys want to, my blog's up at buzzadamshow.com. You can go check out all the different theories and stuff that I put in there. If you want to see both end credit scenes, I have posted them there. Hopefully they stay there because, they might get taken down by YouTube. But hey, I just posted the link. That's it. The video's right there for you to watch. So you can go check that out at buzzadamshow.com. Again, there's a new episode of Rockstar 101 that is up. It's all about equality. Of course, who do you want to hear talk about equality? It's 2 white guys. You can find that on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. We do have the Buzz Adams Morning Show podcast. You can find that on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Trying to get it on Spotify. But we got to figure out how we're going to do that.
Also, allegedly, Joanna and Emily do a podcast, but nobody's ever actually seen it, so we don't know if it exists or not.
They have a podcast that's called What the Buzz, and you can find that on Spotify. They started out on SoundCloud. They have since moved it to Spotify. So these are all the different podcasts. Again, keep up to date, buzzadamshow.com. That's where you can find all of our blogs and all these updates and everything else like that. Is there anything else that you have about Spider-Man Far From Home? Or any MCU theories?
I kind of regret that it's already established J. Jonah Jameson knows that Peter Parker, so Peter Parker can't be living that double life where he's, on the one hand, working for J. Jonah Jameson, and on the other hand, his nemesis or the
Yeah, but you never know
secret
how
identity.
you never know how they might tackle that in in the comic or in the future movies. I mean, that could be something that I kind of hope they don't completely undo it. But then again, we've already seen that storyline play out in the movies before with Tobey Maguire working for the Daily Bugle and then also being Spider-Man.
Was there J. Jonah Jameson in either one of the Amazing Spider-Man movies?
I don't at all. Like those movies are
kind of a blur. Like I remember the first one had the Lizard,
mm-hmm.
and the second one had Jamie Foxx, who I think was supposed to be Electro.
He was Electro, and then you also had Paul Giamatti as the Rhino, which was totally fantastic. If you don't hear the sarcasm in my voice, I feel sorry for you. But there's also another rumor in regards to Spider-Man.
Absorbing Man. That was a good Spider-Man villain.
That's a villain you would want to see, though?
Yeah, maybe Absorbing Man. Absorbing Man was actually on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
They're talking about the potential that Ned from Spider-Man is the Hobgoblin. And down in the future, they will turn him into the Hobgoblin. Okay. Which is interesting because when you look at him, like you're like, oh, he's a happy-go-lucky guy. Like the kind of the side story with him and is it Betsy?
Betty
Brant. Who she ends up working for the Daily Bugle later on. She was like the secretary, played by Piper Posey, I believe, wasn't it, in the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans?
Parker Posey.
God, I am off today.
Piper Laurie.
Roddy Piper.
Or
Piper Perabo.
Roddy McDowell.
Hot Rod.
Malcolm McDowell.
Rod Williams.
Okay.
Rod Woodson. Okay, so, but it's you see him as kind of this happy-go-lucky, jovial guy, but man, like they showed footage. Like there's pictures of him as I was going through Getty Images today. He shaved his head for a role or something. He looks menacing.
Ned does?
Yeah, I'll show you the picture, man, and I'll maybe put it up. Or
I have to see that to believe.
He looks rather menacing. But on that note, this is going to be it for our this edition of the AfterBuzz. And remember, click the like button down there. You guys make sure you sign up for the notifications and everything else because I believe Buzz and Joanna did a video yesterday that should be up soon. Who could name the most Samuel L. Jackson movies? So that video will be coming up shortly.
I'm very proud that I got Amos and Andrew.
Did you get Coming to America?
No. That's a great one.
Because remember, he plays the bank robber. That's it. Did you get...
I got all the Tarantinos.
Did you get The Incredibles? Incredibles 2?
No, forgot that one.
It's Frozone, baby. All right, on that note, make sure you guys are clicking all the stuff below and all the other shit. And we'll see you guys next week for the AfterBuzz and bright and early tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. Mountain Time for Buzz Adams' morning show. Peace out.